Host of Facing South Florida, Jim DeFede, is joining us now. So, Jim, what do you think? Was there anything that surprised you, or was this kind of along the lines of what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I got to admit, I got a little bit of a whiplash going on watching the speech, because there were moments that it was incredibly uplifting and stirring. You know, his use, the president's use of people in the audience, whether it was the 10-year-old girl who's battling cancer, to the World War II veterans, to the man who survived Dachau as a child, and bringing all those stories together. But at the same time, while there was tremendous light in some of this, the president also went to his dark side, talking about immigration. Again, going back to that notion of deadly caravans making their way up to the United States to infest the country once again. You know, there was a mixed bag here. It seemed as if, while there was part of the speech, it almost seemed like he was conflicted with himself, that he wanted to give a speech that was talking about compromise and unifying, at the same time still needed to do the things for his base, like give them the ammunition about abortion and some of those other issues and immigration.
Do you think he made the case that there's a crisis at the border that rises to the level of a possible national emergency?
I don't. I don't think that this was the format that he was using for that, because, again, you know, other than that line talking about how there's another caravan coming. This is now, what, the third, fourth, or fifth caravan that he's talked about. I think the American people sort of grow weary of the boy who cried, or the president who cried caravan too many times. So I don't know that this speech was intended to set up the national emergency as much. You know, a lot of the talk about immigration, it was stunning because, while at the one hand, again, it was a tale of almost two speeches. In one part of the speech, he talks about how this is a country that values legal immigration, even though some of the policies that he's put forth is trying to limit the amount of legal immigration going on. He then again turned to the very heavy rhetoric against illegal immigration.
So do you think he succeeded in bringing up these kind of bipartisan issues that everyone could agree on in a divided Congress, his first State of the Union in divided Congress, a divided country right now, or did he just rally to his base? You know,
again, it was a little bit of both those things. I really did think that, you know, probably the image that's going to last, I think, resonate in a lot of ways, was realizing that the president, as he looked out on that crowd, and if you notice, he always tended to sort of turn his body. You can almost see it there. By turning his body to the left, what he's really doing is he's addressing the Republicans who are on to his left. Right. So so he's looking that way, because to his right, there was a sea of Democratic women all wearing white. And yes, there were some wonderful moments, like when the president acknowledged the sudden rise of women in Congress. Just to give you the numbers again, 102 women are in the House, 89 of them are Democrats. You know, and when he looked out over there and sort of said, I realize that this is a record number, and they all cheered, that was a lovely moment. But at the same time, you know, again, he was trying to turn more to the Republican side of things. He didn't spend a lot of time with infrastructure. He didn't spend a lot of time on prescription drugs. You know, those are the things I thought he would try to reach more in terms of a bipartisan effort.
Is there anything you didn't hear that you thought you would have?
There were a couple of things that I just wanted to note. You know, since the last State of the Union, we had the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. And if you remember, about a year ago, the president spent a lot of time. We heard nothing about gun reform or school safety. Also, I'm amazed that he never directly addressed the shutdown that just took place for the 35 days, and no acknowledgement towards the federal employees, the 800,000 federal employees who went through that crisis. Just some acknowledgement of them, just sort of talking to them in a way. I thought that would have been interesting to have done that.
All right, Jim, thank you very much for your insight.